So you've learned how to list what's in a directory and how to move around a file system. Now let's zoom out and understand the big picture, how Linux organizes everything. Linux doesn't just throw files anywhere, of course, there's a logical structure, and every directory has a specific purpose. Once you understand this structure, you'll always know where to look for things. If you need a configuration file, if you're looking for logs, you'll know where exactly these things are. You want to know where a program is installed, you'll know that too. System admins use this knowledge every day. Security analysts need to know where to look during investigations. DevOps engineers need to understand the structure to deploy applications correctly. Developers need to know where their application should store the data and the logs and the configurations. And if your experience is with Windows, you'll discover that Linux does things very differently. So this understanding of these differences is going to help you make that mental shift to feel more comfortable in Linux. So if we start at the very top, in Linux, everything begins at the root directory represented by a single /. Now in Windows, you have separate drive letters, C, D, E, and so on. Each drive is its own separate tree. If you plug in a USB drive, it might become E or F. But Linux doesn't work that way. There's only one tree, and it all starts at the /. Every file, directory, device, USB, it all exists somewhere under this single root. When you plug in a USB drive in Linux, it doesn't get its own letter. Instead, it gets mounted as a directory somewhere in the existing tree, often after media or MNT. So yeah, the single unified structure can feel really strange to you if you're used to Windows, but a lot of people think it's more elegant than Windows, because you never have to wonder which drive something is on. Everything has one address, one path. The home directory is the directory you'll spend the most time in here. It contains personal directories for each user on the system. If you have a user named Candy, then their home directory is home Candy. So /home/Candy. And the same thing, any other name, any other user. Inside your home directory, you store your personal files, documents, downloads, and personal configuration files. It's your space on the system. This is similar in Windows to C users. In Windows, each user has a folder under the C drive, C user's username, with their documents, downloads, desktop, and so on. But in Linux, it's home username that serves that same purpose. What you'll typically find in a home directory are, like I mentioned, the personal documents, downloads, and files, the hidden configuration files, the dot files, like .bashrc, .profile, and .ssh, application settings in .config, and desktop environment files if you're using a graphical interface. So as a system administrator, when a user says, I lost my file, you know to look in home username. That's the directory structure. When you're setting up a new user, you know their personal space will be created in home. When backing up user data, you know home is what you need to capture. There's one special user whose home directory is not in home, and that's the root user, which is the super user or administrator. The root user's home directory is /root, not to be confused with just /, which is the root of the file system. It's separate because the root user is special. They have complete control over the system. Keeping their home directory separate from regular users is a security and organizational choice. Also, home might be on a separate disk partition that gets mounted later in the boot process, but the root user needs to be able to log in even if that partition has problems. If we compare it to Windows, it's somewhat like how the administrator account in Windows has special privileges, though Windows doesn't physically separate the admin's profile directory the same way. The etc directory is where system-wide configuration files live. The name historically stood for etc., but now it's often thought of as editable text configuration. This is one of the most important directories for system administrators. Almost every service and application stores its configuration here. Examples of what you'll find in the etc directory: find password, PASSWD, the user account information; shadow, encrypted passwords, restricted access; hosts, local hostname to IP mappings; SSHD config, which is the SSH server configuration; Nginx, the Nginx web server configuration; Apache 2, the Apache web server configuration; crontab, the scheduled task definitions; and fstab, the file system mount configuration. In Windows, much of this configuration is stored in the registry, that database you access with regedit. But Linux takes a different approach. Configuration is stored in plain text files that you can read and edit with any text editor. Many Linux users consider this a major advantage because you can easily see what's configured. You can copy configurations between systems, you can track changes with version control like Git, and you don't need special tools to edit the settings. Let's say a web server isn't responding correctly. As a sysadmin, your first instinct is to check etc nginx nginx.conf, conf, or etc apache2 apache2.conf. This is to see how it's configured. You can see exactly what settings are applied without digging through a graphical interface or registry. A security scenario might be during an incident investigation. You might check etc password to see if any suspicious user accounts were created, or examine etc ssh config to see if SSH settings were modified to allow unauthorized access. Now, the var directory contains variable data, files that are expected to grow and change during normal system operation. The most important subdirectory here for most IT professionals is var log. It contains system and application log files. So key locations in var is var log, where the log files. There's var log syslog, or var log messages, where the general system logs are. There's var log auth.log, which is where the authentication logs are, the login attempts. There's var log apache2, or var log nginx, the web server logs. And there's var www, the web server content on many systems. There's also var mail for user email storage, var temp for temporary files that persist across reboots, and var lib for application state data. To compare it to Windows, in Windows logs are primarily stored in the event viewer, which uses a binary format. You need the event viewer application to read them, but in Linux, logs are plain text files that you can read with simple commands like cat, less, tail, or grep. This makes log analysis much more flexible. You can use all the text processing tools Linux offers. The Windows application data often goes in C program data or C user's username app data, but Linux's var lib serves a similar purpose for application state that needs to persist. Think of a scenario: a user reports they cannot log in. You immediately check var log auth.log to see the authentication attempts. You might run tail with the F flag and then the path of var log auth.log to watch login attempts in real time while the user tries again. A security scenario: let's say you're investigating a potential breach. The logs in var log are your primary source of evidence. You'll grep through auth.log for failed login attempts, check web server access logs for suspicious requests, and look at syslog for unusual system activity. Now let's talk about where programs actually live. This is an area where Linux has some historical complexity, but let's try to make it clear. Bin is essential user binaries, commands. These are the basic commands needed for the system to function, even in single user mode or during recovery. Commands like ls, cp, mv, cat, and bash live here. And then sbin, which is essential system binaries. These are administrative commands typically run by root, like fdisk, ifconfig, reboot, and shutdown. And then there's user bin. These are the non-essential user binaries. Most of the programs you install end up here. This is where you'll find applications like Vim, Git, Python, and Firefox. User sbin is the non-essential system binaries, administrative programs that aren't critical for basic system recovery. On modern Linux systems, bin is often a symbolic link to user bin, and sbin is a symbolic link to user sbin. The distinction has become less important. So when you install a program, it usually goes somewhere in user, or USR. We'll compare this to Windows. In Windows, programs are typically installed in C program files or C program files x86. Each program gets its own folder containing its executable and supporting files. Linux spreads things out differently. Executables go in user bin, libraries go in user lib, and configuration goes in etc, and so on. It might seem disorganized at first, but it actually makes the system more modular and easy to manage. Now, user local bin is where locally compiled or manually installed software typically goes. If you compile a program from source rather than installing it from a package manager, it usually ends up here. This keeps it separate from system-managed software. Let's say you install a new tool using your package manager like apt install htop. The executable goes to user bin htop. Later, you want to install the absolute latest version by compiling from source, and that version goes to user local bin htop. The system can tell the difference. Now, libraries are shared code that programs use. Rather than every program including all the code it needs, programs share common libraries. Lib and userlib contain these shared libraries. You don't interact with these directly most of the time, but it's important to know they exist. To compare it to Windows, these are similar to those DLL files, dynamic link libraries in Windows, which are typically stored in C Windows System 32 or alongside the applications that use them. Now, in Linux, hardware devices are represented as files. The dev directory contains these special device files. When you interact with hardware, you often interact with a file in the dev directory, /dev, DEV. Examples would be SDA, dev SDA, or SDA1. Now, SDA is your first hard drive. SDA1 would be the first partition on the first hard drive. Dev null is a black hole that discards anything written to it. Dev 0 produces endless zeros when read. Dev random produces random data. And dev tty is your terminal. This concept, everything is a file, is a core Unix and Linux philosophy. It means you can use the same tools to interact with hardware that you use to interact with regular files. Comparing that to Windows, Windows handles devices very differently, using the device manager and driver interfaces. Typically don't interact with hardware through the file system on Windows. But Linux approach is more transparent. You can see your devices right there as files. Consider a forensic analyst. They need to create an exact copy of a hard drive for investigation. In Linux, they can use dd if equals dev sda of equals path to image.img. They're literally reading the device as if it were a file. The temp directory is for temporary files that programs create while they're running. Files here are expected to be deleted on reboot, though the exact behavior depends on system configuration. Now, any user can typically write to temp, which makes it useful but also a potential security consideration. The Windows comparison is similar to C Windows temp or the % temp% in Windows. Now let's say you're troubleshooting why a server is running out of disk space. Check temp and find it's filled with gigabytes of temporary files from a misbehaving application that didn't clean up after itself. Think of the security consideration. Attackers sometimes use temp to store malicious scripts because it's world writable. During security investigations, it's worth checking what's in temp. When you connect external storage devices or network drives, they need to be mounted somewhere in the file system tree. /MNT is the traditional location for temporarily mounted file systems. System administrators often mount drives here manually. Now /media is the modern location where removable media gets automatically mounted. When you plug in a USB drive on a desktop Linux system, it often appears here as media username drive name. Compare that to Windows. In Windows, you plug in a USB drive and it becomes E or F, for example, or a new drive letter of some kind. In Linux, it becomes a directory, maybe Media Candy USB drive. The contents are then accessible inside that directory. So let's say you need to access a network file share. You might mount it at MNT network share, and then the files are accessible as if they were local. You can say ls MNT network share. The proc directory is a virtual file system. It doesn't contain real files on disk. Instead, it's a window into the kernel's view of running processes and system information. Examples would be proc CPU info, that's your CPU information, proc mem info, your memory information, proc 1234, information about process with ID 1234. This is more advanced territory, but it's still useful to know that it exists. System monitoring tools read from proc to get their information. We compare it to Windows. Windows doesn't have a direct equivalent. You use Task Manager, Performance Monitor, or PowerShell commands to get similar information in Windows. So your quick mental map recap to remember is that the root is where everything begins. Home is for user personal files, just like C users in Windows. /root is the root user's home. /etc is configuration files like the Windows registry, but instead readable text. var is variable data, especially var log for logs. USR bin User bin is most programs like C program files in Windows. /TMP is your temporary files. /DEV is your device files. And your mount points for drives are in /MNT or /media. So whenever you're looking for something, just ask yourself, is it a user's personal file? If so, home. Is it a configuration? If so, etc. Is it a log? Go to var log. Is it a program? User bin or just bin. And if it's temporary, /TMP for temp.